I still remember the first time Jenna asked me to get the marriage certificate. It was supposed to be a joke, she said. Come on, Riley, it'll be fun, she had laughed, her eyes gleaming with that mischievous spark she always carried. I sat there, staring at her, my thoughts a mess of confusion and hesitation. Jenna and I had been friends since childhood. She was the one who knew me inside out. My fears, my dreams, everything. I trusted her more than anyone else. But something about her voice that day, the way she looked at me, felt off. Are you serious? I asked, trying to laugh it off. Totally. It's just a piece of paper. Nothing more. You'll see, she said, flicking her hair behind her shoulder, her smile widening. I couldn't quite place it, but there was a strange urgency in her tone. I thought I was just overthinking it. After all, it was Jenna. She had always been a little quirky, a little unpredictable. It was nothing new. So I went along with it. But looking back, I should have listened to that voice in my head. A few days later, we were sitting at the small cafe near her place, sipping on lukewarm coffee. She was talking a mile a minute about something, probably work or some random new hobby she'd picked up, and I was zoning out, lost in my thoughts. It wasn't unusual. I had been feeling this strange distance between us for a while, like something was subtly shifting, but I couldn't figure out what. Riley, you've been quiet. What's up? Jenna's voice snapped me back to reality. She was leaning in, studying me with an intensity that felt almost too much. Just tired, I guess, I muttered, shaking my head. The marriage certificate thing? Are you really serious about it? She laughed, a carefree, tinkling laugh that didn't quite match the situation. Of course, it's just for fun. Stop worrying so much. But I wasn't convinced. Over the next few days, I noticed small things. How Jenna would insist on certain things, always managing to turn every situation into something that worked in her favor. She would push my buttons in ways that left me confused, unsure if I was overreacting or if something was really wrong. There was a certain sharpness to her actions that didn't feel playful anymore. I began to realize I wasn't just feeling disconnected from her, I was feeling manipulated. One evening, I walked into her apartment unannounced, wanting to surprise her with dinner. But as I opened the door, I froze. Jenna was sitting on the couch, talking to a guy I didn't recognize, laughing and leaning in closer than I'd ever seen her lean with me. The way he touched her arm, the way she smiled at him, it was clear. They weren't just friends. Riley! Jenna jumped up, startled, and quickly tried to cover the awkwardness. I wasn't expecting you. I couldn't breathe. I stood there, feeling like the ground had been pulled out from under me. The betrayal was so sudden, so unexpected, I couldn't find the words. My heart hammered in my chest as I looked at the two of them. I didn't know you were seeing someone else, I said, the words coming out colder than I intended. Riley, it's not what you think, she started, but I cut her off. No, don't try to explain. I'm not stupid, Jenna. I know what this is. There was a long silence as I tried to process what was happening. I wasn't angry, but I could feel the weight of everything that had been building up. I was hurt. Deeply. Riley, please, she said, her voice shaky now. It's complicated. But I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. The trust, that invisible thread that had held us together for years, had snapped. And for what? For a joke? For a game? I turned away, my feet heavy as I walked out of her apartment without saying another word. And that's when it hit me, the realization that the joke wasn't on me. It was all part of her plan, her game. I wasn't just some guy caught in a moment of confusion. I was a pawn in her bigger, twisted game. I felt sick, like I'd been played for a fool. But something inside me hardened. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. No more. I knew I had to do something. But what? In that moment, I decided. I wasn't going to let Jenna win. Not this time. Not ever again. The deal she fooled me with had just turned into a game of survival. And I wasn't going down without a fight. I didn't know what to think anymore. The whole situation felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But when I saw Jenna with him again, this time, in public, I couldn't deny it. The truth was staring me right in the face. I was sitting in the cafe, my usual spot, when I saw her. She was sitting across from him at a table near the window, laughing. Laughing. That wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part was how she looked at him, the same way she used to look at me before everything changed. It was like she didn't even care that I was watching. I stayed hidden behind the newspaper, pretending to be absorbed in the latest headlines, but my heart was thundering in my chest. My stomach twisted in ways I hadn't felt in years. I had seen this before, the way she leaned in close to him, the way he brushed his hand against hers. It was the same thing she'd done with me, back when things were simple. I couldn't take it anymore. I threw the newspaper aside and stood up abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Jenna's head snapped toward me, her eyes wide with shock. She looked guilty. And for a moment I just stood there, staring at her, feeling that old, familiar ache. "Riley," she whispered, almost as if she was afraid of me. I didn't say anything right away. Instead, I just walked up to their table, my legs stiff, my fists clenched. He looked up at me and I recognized him immediately. Chris, the guy she'd been seeing behind my back. The guy I had seen at her apartment that night. The guy who wasn't supposed to be there. "Riley," Jenna said again, her voice a little shaky now. "This isn't what it looks like, really." I cut her off, unable to hold back the frustration building up in me. "Then what is it, Jenna? What is this?" She opened her mouth to answer, but I wasn't interested in hearing any more lies. I had heard enough. "How long, Jenna?" My voice was colder than I meant it to be, but I couldn't help it. I was done being patient. "How long has this been going on?" She looked down at her hands, avoiding my gaze, and I could see her struggling to come up with something to say. Chris sat there quietly, not even trying to defend her. He just looked between us, like he was waiting for the storm to pass. I shook my head, anger flooding me. "Don't bother," I muttered. "I already know. I saw you two at your place a few nights ago." Her face paled and she reached out, her hand trembling as she tried to touch mine. "Riley, I'm so sorry. Please, just let me explain." I jerked my hand back. "Explain? No, Jenna. You don't get to explain anything to me anymore." I could feel the heat of my emotions rising, but I forced myself to stay calm, to not lose control. "You've been lying to me for who knows how long. We were supposed to be in this together, and now I find out you've been with him all along." Jenna's eyes welled up with tears, but I didn't care. I had no sympathy left for her. "Please, Riley," she whispered, her voice breaking, "it's not like that. I didn't mean for you to find out like this." I thought. "You thought what?" I interrupted, my voice rising despite myself. "That I wouldn't notice? That I wouldn't feel it when you started pulling away from me? You played me, Jenna. You knew exactly what you were doing." Chris shifted uncomfortably in his seat, clearly caught in the middle, but I didn't care about him. I didn't care about anything except the betrayal I was feeling right then. "You don't get it, do you?" I continued, my eyes burning with a mix of fury and hurt. "This whole time I thought we were still us. But you were already planning your escape, weren't you? It was all a joke to you. Well, it's not funny anymore." I turned to leave, my heart pounding in my chest. I could feel Jenna's eyes on me, and for a brief moment I almost turned back. But I didn't. I couldn't. Before I reached the door, I heard her voice again. "Right, please," she begged softly, her tone almost pleading. "I never wanted to hurt you." I didn't stop. I just kept walking. I was done. As I stepped outside, the cold air hit me like a slap to the face. I stood there for a moment, breathing deeply, trying to push back the wave of emotions threatening to overtake me. But no matter how hard I tried to control it, I felt the rage bubbling up inside of me. The betrayal was real, and now I had to do something about it. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but one thing was clear: I wasn't going to let her get away with this. And I wasn't going to let him have her. Not like this. I couldn't get the image of her and Chris out of my head. It haunted me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together. His hand on her arm. Her smile that was too bright, too familiar. It was like my world had been turned upside down, and I didn't know how to make sense of it anymore. I sat in my car, parked in front of her apartment building, staring up at the window of the apartment I had once called my second home. The place where we'd shared so many late-night talks, where we'd laughed, where I thought we were building something real. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. But instead, I just sat there, my hands clenched on the steering wheel, my thoughts racing. Why the hell did I let it go this far? I muttered to myself, slamming my fist against the wheel. I thought I was doing the right thing by holding back, by giving her space. I thought I was doing the mature thing by not confronting her immediately. But now I realized I'd been a fool. The betrayal was too much. I wasn't sure if I was angrier at her or at myself for not seeing it sooner. Maybe I should just confront her, I said aloud, as if talking to myself might bring clarity. Maybe just go in there and demand the truth. No more games. But something inside me stopped me from doing that. I didn't want to be the guy who just took whatever she threw at me. I wasn't that person. And I wasn't going to let her treat me like one. I took out my phone and dialed Jack, my older brother. He picked up after a few rings. "Riley? What's up?" His voice was casual, but I could hear the concern in it. He always knew when something was wrong. "Jack, I need advice." My voice sounded strained, like the words were stuck in my throat. "I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should confront Jenna or just let it go." There was a long pause on the other end, and I could feel Jack's gaze, even through the phone, like he was weighing his words. Finally he spoke. "Look, Riley, I'm not going to tell you what to do. But I'll say this, you've got to do what's best for you now. Not for her. You've been chasing her for so long, trying to fix something that wasn't even broken on your end. You need to stop looking for her approval. Whatever she's doing, whatever she's done, she doesn't deserve your energy anymore." I stayed quiet, the weight of his words sinking in. Jack was right. She didn't deserve my energy anymore. The truth hit me like a slap to the face. I had to stop pretending like I could fix this. "You're right," I muttered, more to myself than to him. "I've been stuck in this for too long." Jack sighed, like he was relieved to hear me finally admit it. "So, what are you gonna do?" "I'm going to do something she'll never expect." There was a pause before Jack spoke again, his voice lighter now. "What does that mean?" "I'm going to go through with the marriage registration. But not with her." There was a slight pause on the other end of the line, and then Jack laughed. "You're kidding. You're really going to do that?" I wasn't kidding. I wasn't playing around anymore. "No, I'm not kidding," I said, my voice steady, determined. "I'm going to marry someone else." Jack let out a low whistle. "Damn, Riley. I didn't think you had it in you. Who's the lucky girl?" I hesitated for a second, but the answer came to me quickly. "Sophie." Jack was silent for a moment. "Sophie? You're serious about this?" "Yeah," I said, feeling the weight of the decision settling in. "She's been there for me. She's the one person who hasn't lied to me. She deserves better than what Jenna's given me." "All right then," Jack said, his tone shifting to something more serious. "If you're sure, then go for it. Just remember, this isn't about getting back at Jenna. It's about doing what's right for you. Make sure you're doing this for the right reasons." "I know," I said quietly, staring at the empty apartment building across the street. "I'm doing it for me." After hanging up, I sat there for a few minutes, just thinking. I was nervous, of course. But there was something else, too. Something that felt like freedom. Like I was finally taking control of my life again. I grabbed my keys and started the car. Sophie wasn't expecting this. I hadn't even told her about my plan yet. But I knew that I couldn't waste any more time. I had to do this. I had to stop being the guy who waited around for someone who wasn't coming back. Sophie had been my friend for years. She deserved better. She deserved a future without secrets, without betrayal. And maybe, just maybe, I could give her that. I didn't know how it would turn out. I didn't know what would happen next. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let Jenna win. Not like this. Not after everything she'd put me through. I was going to take control, and I was going to do it my way. The day of the wedding arrived faster than I expected. There I was, standing in front of a small crowd of friends and family, my heart pounding in my chest. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't tell if it was from excitement or nerves. Maybe it was both. Sophie stood beside me, her eyes bright with a mix of confusion and hope. She wasn't expecting this. None of them were. But I couldn't go back now. I glanced at the guests who had gathered. There weren't many, just a handful of people who mattered. Sophie's parents, my brother Jack, a few close friends. I had called them in a rush, explaining that I was getting married today and needed them here. Most had asked questions, but I had only told them enough to get them to show up. I couldn't give them all the details yet. Sophie still didn't know everything. She only knew I wanted her to be my wife, and that was enough for now. Sophie, you sure you're okay with this? I asked, my voice low. She smiled at me, but there was a flicker of doubt in her eyes. I don't know what you're up to, Riley, but I trust you. Her words were soft, almost like a reassurance she was trying to convince herself of. She wasn't sure, but she was here. She was trusting me, and that was all I could ask for right now. I nodded, trying to smile, but the truth was, I wasn't sure either. What was I doing? Was I really ready for this? I had to be. I had to make this work. Not for Jenna, not for anyone else, but for me. And maybe, just maybe, for Sophie. Do you, Riley, take Sophie to be your lawfully wedded wife? The officiant asked, his voice steady. I looked at Sophie. She was beautiful. She always was. But today, something was different. There was a kind of strength in her eyes that I hadn't noticed before, something that told me she wasn't just standing here because I asked her to. She was standing here because she believed in me. And maybe, in some way, she believed in us. I do, I said, my voice unwavering. The officiant turned to Sophie. And do you, Sophie, take Riley to be your lawfully wedded husband? She looked at me, and for a brief moment, I thought she might hesitate. But she didn't. Sophie took a deep breath and smiled. I do. The weight of those words hit me like a freight train. We had just made a promise. A commitment. And it wasn't just about the piece of paper, the marriage certificate. It was about something more. It was about trust. It was about moving forward, not backward. And it was about leaving the past behind. The crowd clapped, and I forced myself to smile. But inside, my heart was racing. This was real. This wasn't some joke anymore. This was my life. Our life. As the ceremony ended and everyone began to congratulate us, I saw Jenna standing in the back, her eyes fixed on me. I knew what she was thinking. She thought I was making a mistake. She thought I would always be hers. And maybe, in some part of me, I had believed that once, too. But not anymore. Sophie turned to me, her hand in mine. So, this is really happening, huh? She said, her voice barely above a whisper. I squeezed her hand, my gaze locked on hers. Yeah. It is. Sophie gave me a hesitant smile. What happens now? Now, I said, taking a deep breath, we move forward. Together. I wasn't sure where the road ahead would lead, but I knew I couldn't go back. The past was over. Jenna was over. This, what was happening right now, was real. Sophie's hand tightened in mine as the crowd slowly began to disperse, congratulating us and offering their well wishes. But I didn't care about any of that. I only cared about what Sophie and I would build from here. The past was gone. And whatever came next, we would face it together. I turned to her, my heart beating faster now. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. For everything. She looked up at me, her smile softening. You don't have to thank me, Riley. We're in this together. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be. The days following the wedding felt like a blur. It wasn't that I didn't care about Sophie, because I did, more than I had ever cared about anyone. But everything that had happened, everything I had done, was still settling into my mind. The anger, the betrayal, the shame. It was hard to reconcile who I had been with who I was now. I had never thought of myself as someone who sought revenge. I had always considered myself patient, understanding, willing to forgive. But that night when I saw Jenna with him, Chris, it felt like a switch had flipped inside me. She had betrayed me in the worst way possible, and I couldn't just sit back and let her get away with it. The day after the wedding, Sophie and I stayed inside the apartment, keeping to ourselves. I wanted to make sure Sophie knew she was loved, that I was here with her, but part of me was still consumed with thoughts of Jenna and Chris. Sophie didn't know about any of this. She didn't know what had happened before the wedding. She didn't know how deep my betrayal ran. She didn't know how much I wanted to make Jenna feel what I had felt. I found myself pacing the living room, unable to sit still. Sophie sat on the couch, watching me with a quiet curiosity. "You're not fine, are you?" she asked softly, breaking the silence that had been hanging in the air. I stopped pacing, rubbing my face, feeling the weight of the truth hit me again. "I'm just trying to figure it all out." "You don't have to explain anything to me," she said gently. "I just want you to know I'm here for you, Riley. Whatever you're going through, we'll get through it together." And part of me wanted to tell her everything. Part of me wanted to pour out my heart, let her know what Jenna had done, what had led to this moment. But I didn't. I couldn't. I wasn't ready. "Thank you, Sophie," I said, my voice hoarse. "I'm lucky to have you." Sophie smiled, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She wanted more from me. She wanted more than I was willing to give. And it wasn't that I didn't care for her, it was just, everything felt so complicated. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, my thoughts spiraling around the wedding, around Jenna, around the betrayal. I wanted to forget about it all, to just move on. But I couldn't. I wasn't ready to forgive. I wasn't even sure I could. The next day, I met Jack for coffee. He could always get to the heart of the matter, always knew when I was holding something back. And this time was no different. "So," Jack said, taking a sip of his coffee and leaning forward. "What's going on, man? You've been acting strange." I looked at him, trying to decide how much to tell him. He wasn't exactly the type to sugarcoat things, and maybe that's what I needed. "Jenna?" I said, and Jack's face immediately darkened. "Still thinking about her, huh?" "I can't help it, Jack," I admitted, the frustration rising in my chest. "I've tried to let it go. But I can't. Not after everything. Not after what she did." Jack leaned back in his chair, studying me. "I get it. I really do. But listen, Riley, you've gotta let her go. You can't keep holding on to this. If you keep going down this road, you'll only hurt yourself." I slammed my fist on the table. "I don't care about hurting myself, Jack. I care about making her realize what she did. I care about showing her that she can't just walk all over me." Jack sighed deeply. "You're talking about revenge, aren't you?" "I don't know," I muttered. Maybe it's not even about revenge. Maybe it's just about justice. About getting what I deserve." "You're not going to get what you deserve by making her pay," Jack said quietly, his eyes locked on mine. "You're just going to lose yourself in the process." I wanted to argue with him. I wanted to tell him he didn't understand. But deep down, I knew he was right. Revenge wouldn't make me feel better. It wouldn't fill the hole that had been left inside me. But what else was there? "You've got to forgive her, Riley," Jack said, his voice calm but firm. "You've got to let it go." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I don't know if I can." Jack didn't say anything more. Instead, he stood up and slapped me on the back. "Well, I'm here when you're ready. But you've got to figure it out for yourself." I watched him walk away, his words hanging in the air. "You've got to figure it out for yourself." It wasn't until that night, lying awake in bed, that I realized something. I wasn't going to get closure from Jenna. I wasn't going to get closure from Chris. The only closure I could get was from myself. I had to let go of the anger. I had to stop living in the past. If I wanted to move forward, I had to choose to move forward. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of resolve. I had made up my mind. Jenna wouldn't get the satisfaction of watching me crumble. I wasn't going to let her win. But that didn't mean I had to forget. It didn't mean I had to let her off the hook. I made a phone call to the lawyer that afternoon, setting things in motion for the divorce papers. I wasn't going to go back to her. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into forgiving her. I had to do what was right for me. And that meant moving on. It meant ending this chapter once and for all. Sophie didn't know about the divorce papers yet. I hadn't told her, and I wasn't sure when the right time would be. But I had to handle it. I couldn't keep dragging her into my mess. She deserved better than that. As I walked to the post office to mail the papers, I passed by Jenna's apartment building. I knew it was stupid to even look, but I couldn't help myself. I saw her standing at the window, staring out into the street. For a moment, our eyes met, and she didn't look away. It was like she was waiting for me to come to her. But I didn't. I couldn't. I turned and walked away. That night, I sat with Sophie, the silence between us thick with unspoken words. She had been distant, and I couldn't blame her. I wasn't giving her everything she needed. "Riley?" she asked softly, breaking the silence. "What's going on?" I looked at her, seeing the concern in her eyes. I had to make a choice. I could either keep running from my past or face it. I could either keep living in this shadow of betrayal, or I could step out into the light. "I'm sorry, Sophie," I said, my voice low. "I haven't been fair to you. I've been holding on to things that I shouldn't." She didn't say anything, but her expression softened. "I'm letting it go," I said, meeting her gaze. "The past, the anger, all of it. It's over now. And I want to be here with you. For real." She reached out and took my hand. "I'm glad you're here, Riley. I just need you to be honest with me. That's all." "I will," I said, squeezing her hand. "I promise." And for the first time in a long while, I felt like maybe I was finally ready to move on. Jenna wouldn't get the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. But I couldn't let her be the reason I found peace either. I had to find that on my own. It had been weeks since I had made the decision to let go. I had sent the divorce papers. I had stepped away from Jenna and her toxic grip. But even now, my mind wandered back to her every so often, like some shadow I couldn't shake off. Sophie and I had found our rhythm. The tension between us had slowly started to fade, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. She was patient with me, giving me space to heal, but still showing up when I needed her most. And I needed her now more than ever. Yet, no matter how much time passed, no matter how much I tried to move forward, Jenna's actions lingered in my mind. Every day, I kept thinking about what she had done. The betrayal, the lies. It wasn't just about the affair with Chris. It was the way she had manipulated me, kept me hanging on for so long. The cruelty in her indifference. I didn't feel anger anymore. What I felt now was something much quieter, a deep, aching sadness. I had loved her. I had trusted her. And she had thrown it all away. I couldn't help but think about how things were going for her. I knew Jenna well enough to know she had always prided herself on being in control. But what happened when control slipped through your fingers? What happened when the lies started to catch up with you? I got my answer one afternoon when I ran into her in the parking lot outside a cafe. She didn't see me at first, but I saw her, walking out with her head down, her shoulders hunched. She looked different. She looked broken. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but then I saw the way she glanced around nervously, her eyes darting from one side to the other like she was waiting for someone to catch her. And that's when I saw it, the telltale signs of her unraveling. The long face, the desperate attempts to maintain some semblance of normalcy, even as everything around her was falling apart. I stayed hidden in the shadows, my breath catching in my chest. Part of me wanted to walk up to her and say something. Part of me wanted to see if she was really suffering the way I had. But then I realized something. I didn't need to do anything. Jenna's downfall wasn't in my hands anymore. It was in hers. She had done this to herself. I stayed there, watching as she got into her car and drove off, but I didn't feel that surge of anger I once had. What I felt was something else. Something that I wasn't ready to admit yet. The next day, I got a text message from a mutual friend, someone who was still in contact with Jenna. "She's in trouble, Riley," the message read. "Her life's falling apart. She lost her job yesterday, and now she's trying to figure out how to pay the bills. People are talking. They know about Chris. It's all out there." I sat down, the weight of those words settling on me like a cold wave. Jenna had always been able to keep up appearances, always managed to keep things together, no matter how messy they got. But now, everything was unraveling. And it was because of her own actions. Her perfect world was shattering, piece by piece. I didn't know what to feel. I wasn't happy that she was suffering. I wasn't celebrating her downfall. But I wasn't going to pretend that I didn't feel a sense of justice. It was karma, plain and simple. She had built her life on lies and manipulation, and now it was catching up with her. She had no one to blame but herself. Sophie came over later that afternoon, and I could see the concern in her eyes when she saw the look on my face. She didn't ask any questions, she just sat beside me, waiting for me to speak. "I saw her today," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. Sophie didn't ask who I was talking about. She knew. "How was she?" she asked softly, her hand resting gently on mine. I looked at Sophie, feeling a lump rise in my throat. She's falling apart. Everything she's worked for is slipping away, and she doesn't know how to fix it. Sophie squeezed my hand. "You don't have to carry that weight anymore, Riley. You're free. You've done the right thing. Now it's her turn to deal with her consequences." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness wash over me. Sophie was right. I had done what I needed to do. I had cut ties. I had let go of the anger, even if it didn't feel like it at times. Jenna's life wasn't mine to fix anymore. And just like that, the weight of the past started to lift. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but I was starting to realize that forgiveness wasn't what I needed. I didn't need closure from her. I didn't need her to apologize. I needed to forgive myself for letting it go on as long as it had. I needed to stop carrying the burden of her choices. That night, after Sophie left, I sat in the quiet of the apartment, thinking about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the lessons learned. I had been hurt. I had been angry. But now all I felt was stillness. I wasn't going to let Jenna's mistakes define me anymore. I wasn't going to let them haunt me. I was moving forward. And as for Jenna, she would have to face the consequences of her own actions. Because the truth was, no one could escape their karma. No one. I hadn't seen Jenna in weeks. After everything had happened, after the mess we'd both created, I wasn't sure I ever wanted to see her again. But life has a way of throwing curveballs at you when you least expect them. It was a Thursday afternoon when I got the call. I was sitting at my desk, trying to focus on work, when my phone buzzed. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, but something about it made my stomach drop. I hesitated for a moment before picking it up. "Riley?" a shaky voice said. I recognized it immediately. "Jenna?" My heart skipped a beat. "What do you want?" I need to talk to you," she said, her voice breaking. "Please. Can we meet?" I need to explain." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to hang up, to ignore her call and pretend this was all just a bad dream. But another part of me, the part that had once loved her, couldn't just leave it hanging. "I'm not sure there's anything left to say, Jenna," I replied, my voice cold, guarded. "You've already said everything I needed to hear. You made your choices. You've lived with the consequences." "I know," she whispered, and I could hear the tears in her voice. "And I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant for it to get this far." My stomach twisted, and I felt a familiar pang of sorrow. "It doesn't matter now. You made your choices, Jenna. I'm not the one you should be apologizing to." "I know," she repeated, "but I'm not asking for forgiveness. I need you to understand. I need you to hear me out." I took a deep breath, looking out the window, trying to gather my thoughts. Sophie had been so patient with me, and I knew I couldn't betray her trust. But I also knew I couldn't keep ignoring the fact that Jenna was trying to reach out. That small, faint part of me still wondered if there was anything left worth salvaging. "Where do you want to meet?" I asked, not knowing what else to say. I found myself walking through the park an hour later, feeling a mixture of unease and curiosity. The leaves on the trees had just started to turn, the crisp autumn air biting at my skin, but it wasn't the weather that had me on edge. It was the fact that I was about to face Jenna again. After everything. I spotted her sitting on a bench near the lake, her head down, her hands clasped together in her lap. She looked fragile. Nothing like the confident, manipulative woman I had once known. In her place was a person who seemed broken, lost. I approached slowly, not sure what to expect. "Riley," she said quietly, her voice soft, almost hesitant. She looked up at me, and for the first time in a long while, I saw vulnerability in her eyes. "I didn't think you'd come." "Why did you want to talk?" I asked, my words sharper than I intended. Jenna took a shaky breath. trying to steady herself. I know what I did was wrong. I hurt you. I lied to you. I betrayed you in every way possible, and I hate myself for it. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. There were so many things I wanted to say to her, so many words I could have thrown at her in anger, but for some reason I stayed silent. Maybe because part of me understood. Maybe because, in some twisted way, I knew what it felt like to regret your actions, to want to take them back but know you never could. She continued, her eyes welling up with tears. I've lost everything, Riley. I've lost my job, my friends, even Chris. He's gone. He was never really there for me. I thought he would be, but when everything came crashing down, he just disappeared. And now I have nothing. I stared at her, trying to process everything she was saying. So what do you want from me, Jenna? I asked, my voice low, thick with emotion. I want you to know that I'm sorry, she whispered, wiping away a tear. I was selfish. I didn't think about how much I was hurting you. I only thought about myself, and now I'm paying for it. I never meant to break you. There it was again. The sorrow. The regret. I had expected her to come here, to try and manipulate me into forgiving her. But that's not what this was. This wasn't about her trying to fix things. It was her admitting that she had destroyed everything, and now, she had nothing left to give. I know you can't forgive me, she said, almost as if she was reading my mind. And I don't expect you to. But I needed you to hear me out, Riley. I needed to tell you how sorry I am. I looked at her, and for the first time in a long while, I felt something other than anger. I felt sympathy. Maybe even pity. I don't know what you expect me to do with this, Jenna, I said quietly. It's too late. You made your choices. And I've made mine. She nodded as if she had already known that would be my answer. There was no magic word or gesture that could undo what had been done. No amount of regret could fix the past. I understand, she said softly, standing up from the bench. I just wanted you to. I wanted you to hear me say it. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry. Truly. I stood up as well, taking a step back, feeling the distance between us growing wider with every word. I think it's time for you to go, Jenna, I said, my voice steady now, even though I could feel the weight of this conversation pulling at my chest. You need to figure out your own life now. I can't be a part of it anymore. She nodded again, this time without looking at me. She turned and walked away, each step a reminder of how far we had drifted from one another. I watched her go, my heart heavy, but not with anger. Not anymore. Maybe it was relief. Or maybe it was just acceptance. But as I stood there, watching her fade into the distance, I realized something. The past was behind me. The hurt, the betrayal, the lies, they no longer had power over me. It didn't matter how sorry Jenna was. What mattered was that I had moved on. I had let go. And that was the only closure I would ever get. The days following my final conversation with Jenna felt surreal, like I was stepping out of a fog I didn't even know I'd been lost in. As much as I had tried to move on before, I had never fully let go. Not until now. But now, standing here with Sophie, looking at the life we were starting to build, I realized that I was finally free. Sophie and I had found a new rhythm, one that was steady, calm, and filled with the promise of something real. We had gone through a lot together, more than I ever thought we would, but somehow, it felt like the universe had been guiding us to this moment, to this place. I stood in the kitchen, making breakfast for us both, and I couldn't help but smile as I looked over at her. She was sitting at the table, reading through some old messages on her phone, her legs crossed comfortably, the sunlight from the window casting a warm glow on her face. There was something so peaceful about her presence, something that grounded me in a way nothing else could. You know, I said, placing the plate of scrambled eggs in front of her, I never thought I'd be able to wake up to something like this. Sophie looked up from her phone, her eyes softening as she met my gaze. Something like what? This, I said, gesturing to the cozy apartment around us, the simple life we were building together. Something that actually feels right. She smiled, that beautiful, genuine smile that made everything feel like it was going to be okay. Well, I'm glad it feels right to you. Because it feels pretty right to me too. I sat down across from her, and for a moment, we just looked at each other, savoring the silence, the comfort of being with someone who truly understood me. I never thought I'd be able to let go of the past, you know? I said, my voice quieter now, my words tinged with the weight of everything that had happened. There was so much anger, so much resentment. And for the longest time, I thought that's what I needed. To hold on to that anger, to make someone feel what I felt. Sophie set her phone down and reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. And now, I don't need it anymore, I said, squeezing her hand gently. I realized something important through all of this. I didn't need to get back at Jenna. I didn't need her to suffer the way I did. What I needed was peace. And I think I've found it. With you. Her eyes softened as she looked at me, and I could see the love in them. It wasn't just a simple affection, it was something deeper. It was the kind of love that was built on understanding, on shared struggles, and on the kind of strength that comes from moving forward, not looking back. I don't think I could have asked for anything more, Sophie said, her voice full of warmth. You've come a long way, Riley. And I'm so proud of you. I chuckled, a light, almost embarrassed sound. Proud of me? For what? For letting go, she said simply. For not letting the past hold you back anymore. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. I'm not perfect, Sophie. I don't have it all figured out. But with you, I think I'm getting there. One step at a time. She stood up and walked around the table, coming to stand beside me. She leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to my forehead. You're doing just fine, Riley. And we'll keep doing just fine together. I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her close, letting myself feel the weight of everything that had happened in the past few months. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the struggles, it had all brought me to this moment. To this place of peace, of closure, and of hope. Thank you, I whispered into her hair. For being here. For helping me find my way. Sophie pulled back just slightly, enough to look me in the eyes. We're in this together, Riley. And I'm not going anywhere. For the first time in a long while, I felt truly at ease. The weight of my past, the weight of the hurt and betrayal, had finally been lifted. I wasn't just moving forward, I was moving forward with someone who truly cared for me, someone who would stand by me, no matter what came next. The phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it. It was probably just a reminder about work, something I didn't need to focus on right now. Not when I had this. Not when I had Sophie. Do you ever think about what's next? Sophie asked as we sat down at the table together, both of us content in the simplicity of the moment. All the time, I said, looking over at her. But I'm not rushing it anymore. I'm just living. With you. She smiled, that same smile that made my heart skip a beat. I'm glad you're here, Riley. And I'm glad you're choosing to be here with me. And in that moment, everything felt right. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need closure from Jenna or anyone else. What I needed, what I had, was someone who understood me, who accepted me for who I was. And that was enough. We didn't need to have it all figured out. We didn't need to have all the answers. All we needed was each other, and that was enough. And as I sat there watching Sophie, I knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. The past was behind me, but the future, our future, was ahead of us. And together we would face whatever came next.